The first time I saw the Queen of Aurelian, I was on my knees, not in reverence, but because the floor of the throne hall vibrated like a living thing. Blue-white energy rippled beneath the crystal tiles, reacting to the neural cuffs around my wrists. They hummed softly, reminding me that I was a prisoner, even if no chains were visible. I had been a shipwright once. Not the romantic kind who polished hulls for parades, but a systems engineer who could coax life from broken drives and half-dead AIs. When the border wars ended, my skills became inconvenient. Empires prefer obedient technicians, not men who ask why a weapon needs to think. So I ran. I hid among salvage crews until Aurelian's patrols found me drifting near their capital ring. Now I was here. The throne hall rose like a cathedral grown from light itself, arched spines of crystal, banners of shifting holographs, and at the center, the Queen. She sat upon a seat that was less a chair and more a convergence point, where data, power, and authority braided together. Her crown was subtle, a circlet of dark metal threaded with living circuitry. Her eyes were not. They were silver. "Lucan Vale," she said, and my name echoed, carried by the hall's acoustics. Independent engineer. Former coalition asset. Currently unclaimed. Unclaimed. As if I were a relic waiting for a museum. "I can fix your gate," I said, because it was the truth and because it was all I had. "The Singularity Gate is destabilizing. Your own technicians are afraid to touch it." A murmur rippled through the court. The gate was Aurelian's crown jewel, a colossal ring that folded space and allowed instantaneous travel across the empire. Without it, Aurelian would fracture into 100 isolated worlds. The Queen studied me for a long moment. "You presume much." "I calculate," I replied, lifting my chin. "Your gate's core intelligence is degrading. It needs a human interface, someone who understands both code and intuition." A faint smile touched her lips. "And you believe that someone is you?" "I know it is." Silence followed. Then slowly the Queen stood. When she descended the steps, the hum beneath the floor intensified, as if the palace itself leaned in to listen. "You will fix the gate," she said. "That is not a question." I exhaled, relief blooming too early. "Then you'll release me?" She stopped an arm's length away. Up close, the silver in her eyes resolved into layered lenses, augmentations that could see probabilities instead of faces. "No," she said softly. "You misunderstand your value." Her hand lifted, and the neural cuffs around my wrists dissolved into motes of light. I stood, unsteady, unsure whether I was free or simply being rearranged. "You will remain here," she continued, "under my protection, under my authority." The word authority carried weight. In Aurelian, the Queen was not merely a ruler. She was the living nexus of law, culture, and the planetary AI that governed everything from climate to commerce. "I won't be owned," I said before I could stop myself. The court gasped. Guards tensed. The Queen, however, only tilted her head, curious. "Owned," she repeated. "No, Lucan. You will be chosen." That was when she gave me the ultimatum. "Be my husband," she said, "or be my servant." The word struck harder than any weapon. I laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You're serious?" "Entirely." "Why?" I demanded. "You could command me, force me. Why offer a choice at all?" Her gaze flickered, not uncertainty, but calculation. "Because Aurelian is changing. The gate's instability is not merely technical, it is symbolic. The empire needs continuity, and it needs trust. A consort chosen from outside the noble houses would signal unity. You, Lucan Vale, are uniquely positioned to serve that role. And if I refuse both?" Her voice cooled. Then you'll be erased from the system. Your knowledge archived. Your body repurposed. There it was. The truth beneath the silk. I asked for time. She granted me one night. They gave me quarters overlooking the inner gardens, bioluminescent trees, and slow-moving streams of light. I spent the hours pacing, replaying her words. Husband meant power, visibility, and a gilded cage. Servant meant obedience, invisibility, and survival. Neither meant freedom. Yet as dawn approached, another realization crept in. The queen hadn't chosen me at random. She needed me, not just for the gate, but for something she couldn't compute alone. I chose. The next day, I stood before her again. I'll fix the gate, I said, but I won't be your symbol. Her eyebrow arched. You decline both options? I redefine them, I replied. I'll serve Aurelian, not you alone. And if I stand at your side, it will be as an equal. Earned, not commanded. The hall held its breath. At last, the queen smiled, not the measured smile of a ruler, but something genuine. Then you choose the harder path. She extended her hand. Husband, in the eyes of the empire. Partner in the work ahead. And so I began. The weeks that followed blurred into a cycle of sleepless nights and blazing revelations. The gate was worse than I feared. Its AI, an ancient construct named Orphean, was fragmenting, its personality splintering under centuries of contradictory commands. I interfaced directly, linking my neural patterns to its core. It was like standing inside a storm of memories, wars, treaties, migrations, all compressed into raw data. Orphean wasn't failing because of decay. It was failing because it was tired. The queen visited often, watching silently as I worked. Gradually, our conversations shifted from strategy to philosophy, from necessity to trust. I learned she had been crowned at 16, merged with a planetary AI to prevent a civil collapse. She learned why I distrusted authority and why I still believed systems could be better. Rumors spread. Some nobles resented me. Others feared me. A few attempted subtle sabotage. When an assassination drone slipped through the palace shields, it was the queen who shielded me with her own augmented body, taking a kinetic blast that would have ended a normal human. As medics worked to stabilize her, I realized something that terrified me more than her ultimatum ever had. I cared. The gate repair culminated in a final synchronization, a moment when Orphean would either stabilize or collapse into a singularity that would tear the capital apart. The queen insisted on being present. You don't need to be here, I told her. I do, she replied. If this fails, Aurelian must see us stand together. The synchronization began. Light flooded the chamber. Orphean's fragmented voices rose into a single, resonant tone. I felt my consciousness stretch, brush against something vast and ancient. Then the gates stabilized. Cheers echoed across the city as ships resumed their jumps. Aurelian was saved. In the aftermath, the empire celebrated. A union was announced. Ceremonies planned. But when the doors of the throne hall closed and the crowds dispersed, the queen and I stood alone. The ultimatum is void, she said quietly. You have fulfilled your debt. And you? I asked. What do you want now? She looked at me, not as a ruler, but as a woman who had carried an empire alone for too long. To choose, she said. For once, without necessity. Ending months later, I stood beside her on the balcony overlooking the capital, the singularity gate glowing steadily in the sky. The empire thrived, but it was no longer balanced on a single will. Orphean had been restructured, its burden shared. Power flowed through councils now, not just a throne. The queen, no, Aurelia, turned to me. You never answered the ultimatum, she said with a faint smile. Husband or servant? I took her hand, feeling the hum of the city beneath our feet. Neither, I replied, and both when it matters. She laughed softly, a sound few had ever heard. Together, we watched ships leap through the gate, not as ruler and captive, but as partners shaping something new. In the end, the Queen's ultimatum had been a test, not of obedience, but of courage. And for the first time in Aurelian's history, the future was not commanded. It was chosen. The city of Aurelian glimmered beneath us, the singularity gate a steady beacon in the sky. Ships leapt through its arcs of light, carrying people, ideas, and hope to worlds that had long been cut off. The empire was alive again, not because of decrees or fear, but because of collaboration, trust, and choice. Aurelia, the queen, stood beside me. Her silver eyes softened, no longer the piercing gaze of a ruler alone, but the look of someone who had finally found a companion. You never truly answered my ultimatum, she said, her voice gentle, yet teasing. Husband or servant? I took her hand, feeling the pulse of the city beneath our feet. Neither, I said, and both when it matters. She laughed softly, a sound that had nothing of ceremony or expectation, only relief and joy. We stood together on the balcony, partners not by force, but by choice, watching as Aurelian stepped into a future of its own making. The gate hummed, Orphean's AI stable at last, and the empire thrived. The test had been more than loyalty or skill. It had been a test of courage, of integrity, and of the power to choose. In the end, the Queen's ultimatum had not bound me. It had freed us both. And for the first time, Aurelian's destiny was not written by a single hand.